Well, to catch people up to speed with some of the details of what's happening with North Korea, apparently we flew a couple supersonic B-1B Lancer bombers over this area. And North Korea is saying that the bombers conducted a nuclear bomb dropping drill against major objects in its territory when doing this. Now that they're once again saber rattling, saying that the U.S. is trying to bring us to the brink of nuclear war and that it's final doom, and this guy just keeps popping off at the mouth. To me, all the way back to where they were trying to point the finger over cyber attacks and everything else, as I was saying at that point, it seems as though this government is a puppet regime being propped up to blame for whatever. Seems to me if they really wanted these individuals gone, things would have happened. I think all of these head fakes, so to speak, and everything here on the world stage is a part of the theatrics. That's why they call it the world stage. That's why they call them theaters of war. They are playing these things out. And when you look back at history and see how they run both sides of every avenue of all the wars, even created the boogeyman that your brave men and women today are signing up to go fight. And most of you know it. This whole thing's a sham. So to me, they're priming this to where if anything happens here in America, or to, well, let's say, something that affects this country, even if it's offshore, something that affects this country big time, they can blame it on the boogeyman that they've had propped up this whole time. Do you understand me? That is how it has worked almost every other time something huge has gone down. And throughout history, what they teach you in school is something totally different than the reality of what has gone down. That's a fact. And when you look back at the major suppliers of money and funding to the different sides of the war, it all becomes clear. When you see that all these staged events were just that, all the way up to 9/11, for crying out loud, people. The next one's on the doorstep, and are you going to let them blame little Kim? Make him the next Osama or something? What's it going to be? Which way is it going to go at this point? Because the only way that this country is going to get attacked, in my opinion, is if this dark hand behind the scene that pulls the strings allows it to happen and that it's in the cards. That's my opinion. What would be any different at this point from any other staged event we've seen throughout history? And it looks like they're priming a huge one. And I do believe you're going to see some war break loose on the Korean Peninsula at some point. The extreme of it, I'm not sure. But when I look back years ago, when I was looking at the Korean Peninsula, I kept warning that you would see a big explosion take place, a big event on the Korean Peninsula. Now here we are in this situation where everything's all tense and really something could pop off. But just because things pop off, like I just said, doesn't mean that it all wasn't planned and in the cards. When you look back at history and see all these other big events were, why would these other ones be any different? Is what I'm trying to tell you. I know more and more people are starting to see it and get it. And then when you go back to seeing some of the stories that they put out, you can get people, you have to use discernment. Because, yeah, the mainstream's out there, and these headlines are coming out about certain things. You can't just ignore them. You have to use discernment on them. So we'll take and we'll look at all these different things, and we'll weigh it out and put all the cards on the table, use discernment, and see what makes sense and what doesn't. That's all you can do. That's what I try to do. And, at this point, that's how I feel about this whole thing on this world stage. I've told you, the Jesuit Zionist command, all the way up to the Jesuit Pope, the Black Pope, everything behind the scenes. Everything that's going on with the countries behind the scenes that they're not talking about. And I would expect to see out of nowhere another war front kind of heat up. Whether it's Ukraine over Crimea or another area right there on the doorstep of Russia. Because this is all kind of geared toward keeping pressure on Russia. at this point. Proxy wars, things that have been keeping them busy in different areas. If they keep Russia, in my opinion, busy and occupied in all these other areas, then it's going to be hard to defend its own motherland. Now, in terms of nukes, nukes could fly and countries could get turned to ash and wasteland. Does everybody really want to do that? I mean, that's the question you would think. But what if that is already determined? What if, just like everything else, just like Pearl Harbor, everything else, these things are already determined, and they know what city, where, these leaders know it behind the scenes on this world stage. How can that be? How can it be? Because to me, they're fake Christians, Jews, and Muslims. They're fake all of it at the top. This is a part of their secret society networks, their bloodlines. This is part of the show. To me, here on this world stage, why is that? Why would so many leaders be willing to sell out their people in all these countries? Well, most of these leaders aren't of the religion of the people in their country. That's the main thing. They worship the fallen ones. I've said it before. You can turn a cheek to it. You can try to ignore it. You can call them angels, demons, aliens, whatever you want to try to call them. It's in my belief, this is very real. These entities were here. It was written. They tried to wipe them out on this planet. They were still here. Their bloodline, their offspring. And these people, this hierarchy, in all these different spots around the globe, they are a part of that. They are the last lineage of that bloodline. They believe they are superior to you. They call you the Goyim. They believe that you are here to serve them, and they do not believe in your Messiah. So who will be their Messiah that comes? That is the warning. That is how I see it. To clear the air. So it's interesting that B-1 bombers are flying over. We hear about it a couple days later. I mean, if they would have fired a shot up there at them or anything, I mean, that could have set the talk about provocation. If all the details are true, but it seems the U.S. is saying, yeah, our guys were passing through the area, and they also had South Korean fighter jets with them. Were they armed with weapons? Yet to be seen, but I'm telling you this much. It's all world stage, man. And there's other forces at play, I'm here to tell you. We see all this evil, demonic stuff going down, but I'm telling you, there's another force at play here as well, and you better not forget it. As crazy and as bad as this place is, there's always a yin to every yang. Inside of every bit of darkness, there is that little bit of light. I hope it resides inside of you. We are the change. You are the difference. Those of you out there that fight the fight, this information battle on the daily, to get this info out there, get the truth out there, to help people see this clearly, to see the bigger picture, to see the world stage for what it is, and to know that, yes, they will use some of this stuff as a playbook and do these things. I was watching one of these, a video clip the other day of one of these, what are they called? Talmudic Jews that was going off screaming. Actually, he was saying it to Netanyahu, that you must cause things to happen. You must create events. You must do more. He's just sitting there nodding his head, nodding his head. They're like, you must do more to bring about the Messiah. You must bring these things about. This kept telling him, you've got to do more. You've got to cause more chaos, expand your greater Israeli project. And let me tell you something. They just went to the UN trying to lay claim to all of the Golan Heights. No talk about this. The vast amounts of oil and gas that they've discovered there is key. The next step between there and Damascus is where? This is where it all comes back full circle. Mount Hermon. Where the UN has its highest base in the whole region. Where it is marked, in case he found, it is marked with the signature. And this is the area, biblically, where the fallen ones landed. where they landed. So that, to me, is what is important to them. As well as the ancient and the buried stuff in Syria and everything else. Turkey's creeping up, expanding its borders along the border there with Syria. Those ancient places and sites like Göbekli Tepe, just with troops and tanks all around them. Down on the other flank, Israel's snatching up property, now wanting to take over the whole Golan, heading toward Mount Hermon. And then the last thing left is going to be Damascus. If they take if they get all the Golan the way they want it, it won't be nothing to get up into the top of Mount Hermon, side by side with their UN buddies. But I can't help but think that after seeing, the dancing Israelis by the van after the towers fell, and then them on national television saying that they were sent here to document the whole thing. Say what? Yep, that's right. And they want to blame it on a man in a cave. And knowing that these same forces are at hand, those are going to be the same ones that pull off the next event in this country. And don't you forget it.